What's up, my friends? Today we're going to talk about little crankbaits. We're talking about finesse crankbaits. This is a topic that kind of bridges the world between BFS and conventional tournament bass fishing. It's kind of on the heavy side of BFS. It's on the really light side of conventional bass fishing. But when implemented correctly, it can be a killer tool in your arsenal. So today we're breaking down our 5 favorite finesse crankbaits. If you'd like to join us, come along. Welcome to the Hookup Tackle. The Hookup Tackle is the world's largest showcase of Megabass products, featuring baits and colors not found at any other dealer. The Hookup also offers a wide display of O.S.P, Evergreen, Depths, Lucky Craft, Jackal, and many more. The Hookup Tackle is owned and operated by family, is staffed by guides and verified tackle nerds who love helping anglers elevate their craft. If you're in the Phoenix area, we'd love to have you stop by our showroom and check out the wonderful world of Megabass and the Hookup for yourself. If you shop online, there are almost 10,000 SKUs of Megabass products alone, with hundreds of other companies and new products being added daily. So next time you're looking for that hard-to-find bait, that color your fish have never seen before, or maybe you just want to elevate your game, look at thehookuptackle.com. What's up, my friends? I am Ben with the Hookup Tackle, the Tackle Otaku on Instagram, being joined once again by my buddy CJ at Desert Bassin on Instagram. What's up, CJ?
How's it going?
This is becoming weird with no Jeff.
I know. Where's he been?
Is this just the normalness
I guess so. I guess so. He's when the moon phase is right, we'll see him again.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. We'll get through this moon phase, and then Jeff will be back. So we're the Hookup Tackle USA. Today we are breaking down 5 of our favorite finesse crankbaits. Now, finesse can mean many different things. We are defining finesse as like 1/4 ounce and smaller. Okay, so we're talking tiny, light crankbaits that a lot of guys overlook for the fact that they're small and light and possibly difficult to throw. But there are times of the year where the fish either A, just really super key in on small bait, right? So that could be, tiny little bluegills, it could be little perch, it could be little minnows, it could be baby shad, it could be fry. There's times when they just really hyper focus on that tiny bait. There's also times of the year where the fish they get spooked by traditional sized offerings. They might be eating normal sized bait. They might be up in the shallows crushing, 2, 3, 4 inch shad. They might be so shallow that they're a little weary, right? Or they might just have so much pressure on them. They're seeing a lot of chatterbaits and a lot of square bills and a lot of the traditional things that anglers throw, that they're just a little spooked and a little weary and a little hesitant. And all of a sudden you throw something tiny, something small, something finesse. Remember, the smaller it is, the harder it is really for a bass to figure out what's wrong with it, right? The bigger it is, the easier it is to see like, that's fake, oh, it's not moving right. So anytime we can downsize, typically we're giving ourselves an edge on getting bites, especially when fishing gets tough. And I love throwing crankbaits. I know CJ loves throwing crankbaits. We fish crankbaits a lot. So we figured this would be a fun topic and we'll just shoot the shit. In fact, you know what? I need a beer.
There you go.
You want a beer?
I would love one. I need something to wake up a little bit.
How about some caffeine, CJ?
Thank you. Just pure caffeine. Pure fuel right there.
This is the way to do it.
It's so fun.
Man, it's nice having you here. It's fun to have a drinking buddy.
Happy I could fill the void.
Cheers, CJ.
Cheers,
I don't
sir.
think that's ever happened on this side. Cheers, my friends. I hope you guys are having a great week, a great day. Join me if you'd like.
Jeff was wearing an Orion shirt the other day. I saw that.
He was. He's trying.
Yeah.
He's trying to be cool. Yeah. So maybe in the new moon, he'll be drinking again.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe. He's a closet Orion guy. He just doesn't want to
He
admit
is.
it.
Yeah. I mean, he's got more apparel than anybody.
Yeah, apparently.
All right. Let's dive into some crankbaits. Just have an open conversation on baits that we use and have had success with, and hopefully it will help you guys out. So, in no particular order, well, maybe kind of in order, this is generally how we are tackling this when it's time to throw little guys. So, first on my list really is this guy. So, this is the O.S.P Tiny Blitz MR. Now, in the Tiny Blitz world, there is the MR, which I have in my hand. This is the one that I throw 90% of the time if I'm throwing a tiny blitz. But they also make just a regular tiny blitz. So this would be a regular traditional square bill. They also make a DR version, which is great for, you know, kind of getting down into that 10 to 15 foot zone. There's not many baits this size that will get down that deep. So if you guys need to like grind some rocks and that kind of stuff, this can be an awesome one. I chose the MR just because for me, this is like the perfect, like run the bank and bang it around and not get snagged. And if I wanted to get down a little bit deeper, I can just put my rod tip down and wind. If I want to stay shallower, I can just kind of lift my rod tip up a little bit and wind. So it's kind of that perfect, you know, perfect dive depth, right? So the MR has this little coffin lip to it, which makes it deflect off all kinds of covers really easy. So rock, wood, it's just a really kind of hybrid deflector. Any of the OSP Blitz line of crankbaits are excellent crankbaits. They're all built from a honeycomb construction. So the walls of the bait are a little bit thinner, but they're incredibly strong because they're reinforced all the way around. Just like it's full size, you know, Blitz MR or Blitz DR or Blitz EXDR or any of the baits that a lot of you guys may be using already. All of the Blitz crankbaits are weighted strategically at the bottom, and they're weighted for multiple reasons, but the biggest reason for having that fixed weight is castability, right? So a lot of times, you know, there's no internal casting system in here. There's no weight transfer, no rattles. So a lot of times when you take a bait that's this small, and here I'll spec it out for you guys. This is 1 4/5 inch, so 44 millimeters, 6.3 grams. So 7 grams is like a true quarter ounce, right? So it's just slightly lighter than a true quarter ounce. It can be a challenge to throw. So by having that weight on the bottom, it allows it to maintain its flight posture. So what that means is when I go to cast it and this thing shoots out, it's going to maintain this same posture through the whole cast. It's not going to like roll and flail and do this kind of stuff because it's weighted properly. So it's just going to kind of shoot out in a straight trajectory and then down it goes. It'll also help keel the bait. If you start going too fast with it, it'll prevent it from rolling on its side, which is easy to do with a little bait. The other thing I love about this bait, this is a really easy bait to fish on any pound test. And for me, this is critical because the majority of time that I'm throwing a small crankbait like this, for myself, it's either in like a small pond where I want to kind of be BFSy and really, you know, stealthy, or it's in a big lake where I want to do the opposite. I want to throw this on 18 or 20 pound and I want to fish it super shallow around a lot of nasty stuff where nobody else is throwing a little bait like this, right? So I'm going to put it on a medium light cranking stick, maybe a medium if I've got my stuff dialed, but a medium light helps because you need something with some whip, right, to be able to load and cast this thing. And then I'll just up the line to an 18 or 20 pound. That way I've got plenty of power and I can keep the bait basically in that 2 to 4 foot zone. I can tick over grass or cockleburrs or any of that stuff, but nobody else is going to do this, right? So when the fish get pressured, I can present something small and supernatural that just looks like they have to eat it when it's coming by them. So number 1 on my list for sure is the Tiny Blitz MR for me. But again, if you guys are fishing, you know, deeper water, you might go to the DR. If you're fishing really shallow, you know, or from the bank, you might go to just the regular Blitz. But any of those would be great ones. So there's number 1 for me.
My day is taking a complete 180. This morning I was focused on giant crankbaits, and now I'm here. We're
talking just tiny crankbaits.
Yeah.
I didn't even ask you how fishing was. Was fishing good?
No, of course not.
Okay.
But I caught a few.
You did?
I probably should be throwing something like that because there's a lot of tilapia fry up right now.
Okay.
And I'm just stubborn, you know. I'm trying to catch that one fish that's still wanting to eat a
the
gizzard
one
shad.
giant one.
Yeah. But I should be throwing something like that.
Any size?
Way more. I think my biggest fish was just under 4 pounds on a mag draft, funny enough. So I go from throwing a mag draft to basically a 20-foot diving crankbait.
Right.
Love it.
Makes no sense.
No correlation whatsoever.
So zero pattern.
Yeah, exactly.
Good job. Well done.
Dialed in for sure.
Super dialed. Okay. Number 2 on my list. It's hard for this one not to be high up on the list because this is one that just absolutely sticks them. So this is from Megabass. This is the Megabass Super-Z crank. Now, I have the Z2 in my hands because I feel like this is the one that I throw the most when I'm in a finesse crank environment. Now, they make 3 versions of this crankbait, okay? They make a Z1, which is more of a true square bill type crankbait. They make the Z2, which is designed to go a little bit deeper, right? And then the brand new one is the Z3 that has the bigger, deeper diving lip that's for getting out in that 10 to 15 foot range, right? Off a point, down a ledge, that kind of stuff, right? So for me, the Z3 is more like a traditional crankbait. When I'm thinking finesse crankbait, I'm thinking one of these, Z1 or Z2. Now, the reason I go Z2 is if you've hung out here long enough, you hear me talk about line, and you hear me talk about line size and line diameter a lot. I just prefer to throw the heaviest line I can throw. So, you know, this is a bait that I can legitimately throw on 16, 18-pound line, and I can keep it high in the column, right? If I was going to do that with the Z1, it basically was not going to dive anywhere. So I still wanted to get a few feet of depth, right? I still wanted to be able to get down to that 3, 4, 5 foot zone. And for me, this is great. If you guys like lighter line, by all means, throw it on lighter line. And then just choose the one that will get to the depth that you need it to do. What's amazing about this crankbait is, again, this is going to spec out almost identical to that Tiny Blitz that we just did. Let me spec it for you real quick. So 53 millimeters. So the Tiny Blitz was 44. So it's 10 extra millimeters, right? But it's a 1/4 ounce, so 7 grams. So about the same weight as the Tiny Blitz. The difference here is this guy has an amazing LBO weight transfer system to it. So where the Blitz had an external weight system, this one's actually going to help you cast. So when you go to load and you go to release, it has a magnetized, basically like a bullet in the back of it that shifts to the back, and you'll hear it just goes knock, right? And then the thing flies like crazy, and then as soon as it locks back in place, the weight locks in. So you hear it, and then it slides back. Shoots out, locks. Okay, so it's going to cast like a bullet, and then as soon as it lands and you start diving, it shifts back and it's locked in place, and then you have the weight transfer in it. So it's a really easy one to throw. So for me, I'm choosing the O.S.P when it's more strategic. I'm trying to grind some shallow cover. I may be fishing down some lanes. I may be like casting down a tree line or a grass edge. The Super-Z is one where maybe I'm just kind of tossing, you know, way out in front of me, a big long cast down a flat or down a flat edge, or I'm just trying to cover a lot of water. The Super-Z is a great one for that because that weight transfer system in there allows it to cast, unlike any of the other ones that we're going to talk about today, okay? It's also a great one because it's got a lot of super dope colors. So, you know, Matt Crawl is one of my favorites. Cotton Wakasagi is one of my favorites. Little PM Gill, right? So there's a lot of really dope colors in this. It's a great one. So either one of those would be great to start. You know, if you guys are just getting into it, these are probably the two most versatile, in my opinion, that you can still throw on casting gear. So as long as you have the right rod and you have your reel dialed in, you can throw this on a bait caster without having to drop down to a spinning rod. You just need a rod with a lot of whip. Okay, so there you go. Super-Z2, number 2 for me. I don't know why I started saying it like that. All right, number 3 for me, and I'm going to stay on the idea of using a casting rod. This is a relatively newcomer for me in my arsenal. I found a really sweet lane for this crankbait. I know you guys will find the same lane if you mess with it. But this is from a company called Mibro, very popular crankbait company, hardbait company in Japan. This is the Mibro Derringer SR. Okay, so 43 millimeters, 7.4 grams, so almost exactly the same spec as the Blitz. Now, what's different about this is this guy doesn't come in the different bill offerings, right? So the first two had a shallow, a medium, and a deep, right? This is just offered like this. So it's just a shallow runner. Now, what this crankbait does that none of the other crankbaits do is you can see for how short this thing is, it's incredibly wide, right? The lip is wide, the bait is wide. This thing vibrates like crazy under the water. It reminds me of like a jackhammer. So, you know, when you're fishing a jackhammer and you get in tune, you can feel the vibration happening in there, right? The only thing is when that jackhammer is going, it's super loud because that blade is clacking on the head. So you have the vibration, you have the knock. But when you're fishing that in really shallow water, or you're fishing behind 50 other dudes that are also throwing a jackhammer or a chatterbait of some kind, enough is enough, right? So this gives me the option to throw a bait that vibrates just as hard as a jackhammer or a chatterbait does, but with no sound. So you've eliminated any of the rattle, you don't have that knock, but you still have that distinct, hard hitting side to side movement. And that's just based on the shape. It was built like this on purpose to give you that ability. It's really tiny. It comes with great hooks. It vibrates really hard. It's not the easiest bait to cast. There's no weight transfer system in there. There is some internal weighting in there. So you're definitely going to need a nice soft tip on this. And this is going to be a shorter, more specific cast type crankbait, unless you switch over to spinning and then you can just bomb it out. But for me, this is always going on casting. Again, a heavier line because this is a specific use type of bait. But if you guys are just finesse fishing, like maybe you're in a pond, maybe you're in a river system, and you're just throwing some lighter line, some lighter gear, and just looking to have a good time, they'll absolutely smoke this because no other crankbait has this movement to it that this crankbait has. It is a number 3. I don't go to this one as often as I go to the first two, but when they're keyed in on that vibration, where if guys are catching them on lipless or chatterbaits or that kind of stuff, I can usually slip in behind them with this and extend my catch period out quite a bit. So that's from Mibro. That's the Derringer SR. All right, number 4 for me is, again, a relatively newcomer to the market. This is from a company called Bottom Up, and this is the Bottom Up Reezie. Now, I like this version of the Reezie. There's 2 versions. There's the regular Reezie, and then there's this one, which is called the Appeal Plus. Okay? Now, let me spec it out for you. It is 6.8 grams, so just under a quarter ounce, and it doesn't have the millimeters on there for some reason. It does have the millimeters. 56 millimeters, just under 7 grams. So right at that quarter ounce mark. Here's what I dig about the Reezie. So those first few, we were talking about how they're quiet, right? They're a great way to kind of sneak in behind other guys and downsize and, you know, really have more of a finesse approach. This is going the opposite way. So there are times when the fish are super keyed in on small bait, but the water is relatively murky or stained or off-colored, but you still can't throw a big bait because they're feeding on this, but you need them to be able to see it. What's dope about this is it gives me that slender kind of bait fish profile, and you'll notice how much longer it is than some of these other ones, right? So most little cranks have more of a roundish type look, right? And this Reezie really kind of reminds me of like a Big M type shape, right? So it's more of a triangular shape. So it's got a wider bottom than it does top, and it's really loud, right? So it has this built-in rattle chamber in it, which is pretty awesome because most little crankbaits don't. Most little crankbaits are built for finesse, and that's usually when we would use it. But for those times when we need to call the fish early morning, stained water, anything like that, you know, I like to have a little bit of sound, a little bit of body to my crankbait, and this is a great one. The way it can get away by having that longer body versus a shorter, fatter body and still deflect off a cover is the way that it's designed to swim. So this triangular body is designed to have more of a flashing motion, right? So as this comes through, it's going to have a longer, tighter motion, but it's also flashing as it's moving, okay? Similar to like a Big M. And the weight system in there is basically shifting side to side, which is exaggerating that motion. So instead of this thing having this big, you know, side to side movement like the Mibro did, right? Vibrating really hard. This one is going to have an incredibly tight, lifelike motion to it while still giving me the sound, right? So it's really one of the few baits I know of that kind of does everything we need it to do. The Little John does a similar thing where you get that kind of tight square bill with that kind of thumpy sound in it. I just have had more success on this, and it's cooler. So this is usually where I go. So number 4 for me, and plus you get, you know, regular patterns. There's gold patterns, there's shinies, there's mattes. So all kinds of finish options in there, which is dope as well. So the Reezie Appeal Plus from bottom up, that's my number 4.
It's going to be a money bait for guys that are in those lowland reservoirs where their water fluctuates a lot. Like here in the wintertime where water drops and it gets real muddy.
Yep.
It's going to be perfect.
Well, I don't know how many times I've been to a place and you can see the bait flickering and it's tiny.
Right. But
the water is not clear.
Mm-hmm.
And so you try all your traditional things and your traditional thing is just too big. Your swim jig, your spinnerbait, your big square bill, all your normal stuff. But those fish are so keyed into this. But if I throw something this size and finessey, they can't see it.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like this strange, like, you know, do I do this or do I do this? Mm-hmm. So this kind of gives me that.
Yeah, it's a good...
Bridges the gap a little bit.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Still got the flash and the sound.
Yep. All right. And number 5 for me, and this is a bait that this is usually always my starting point when I'm pond fishing. This is like my pond go-to. You can certainly use it on the bigger water. It's just not the easiest one for me to cast on traditional casting gear. So this is more of a BFS, I would say, or spinning, is this guy. This is the Lucky Craft LC 0.5. Now, I would say 90% of the time is this one, the 0.5 DD. I love this bait. There is also just the regular 0.5, which is more of a traditional square bill. So if you guys are fishing really, really shallow, you can go with this. This guy is 1 3/4 inches, so 46 millimeters, 5.8 grams. Okay, so really more like 3/16 of an ounce than a quarter. So it's the lightest bait that we've talked about so far today in this episode. But there's something magical about the 0.5. It's just like that perfect size that catches them. The 0.5, or I should say the LC series of crankbaits, has been kind of just the industry standard for square bill and mid diving type crankbaits. The 0.5 is like the perfect small profile for any bank fishing, any pond fishing. This 0.5 DD is going to get down probably about 6 feet, 6 to 8 foot on light line. Like if I'm throwing this on 3 pound or 4 pound, it'll get down about 6 to 8 foot. So it's a great one for kind of casting out and trying to figure out if there's any rock piles or anything, you know, out there in the pond to bang around. It's also a great one that I could just throw down the bank and I can keep my rod tip up a little bit and it'll maybe only get down to 3 or 4 feet. So a lot of flexibility with it. It's not available in a ton of colors, right? But the colors that it has are kind of the only colors you really need. There's ghost minnow, there's chartreuse shad, right? There's kind of the red craw. So, you know, the 4 or 5 colors that you'll find in it are usually going to be your starting point colors anyways. There's no weight transfer system in it. There's no rattle, so it's a totally quiet, silent bait. So it's not the easiest one to throw, right? So you're going to struggle to cast this one where, you know, you'll be able to cast some of those other few that we talked about earlier pretty easy on casting gear. For me, it's almost always a BFS rod. I love this on my Pop X stick and my Steez Air. I fish with Monaro from Lucky Craft a lot. He throws it on spinning all the time. He loves throwing his spinning stuff. So either way you go is great, but you're definitely going to want a little bit lighter line here. If you go up too heavy on line, it also will cause it to kind of roll. But when you find the sweet spot, it's a money bait. So definitely one that's worth keeping in the arsenal. This is the Lucky Craft 0.5 DD. Now, just as kind of a honorable mention, it was hard for me to talk about this one and not talk about this one. This is the Evergreen, we call it the Picaro, but in the USA they call it the PC-5. This guy is very similar to this guy. You'll notice they almost look identical, right? Only this one weighs a true 1/4 ounce. It's a couple grams heavier than this one is. This one is actually capable of fishing on a true bait casting rod and making a little bit longer cast. So if you like the idea of this, and you're just like, oh man, I wish it was a little heavier, you could take a look at the Picaro or the PC-5. It's just weighted a little bit heavier. But again, it's gonna be a good one to get down. If you're throwing on traditional, it's probably only gonna go about 5-6 feet is what you're going to get. But it's a super small profile. So I prefer this one. It's a little bit more finessey. but this can be a good honorable mention option if you guys need it for some bigger water and heavier line. All right, guys, that is a wrap for me. If you have any questions on anything we discussed or covered, please let me know. One more just kind of tip with any of these baits, I would strongly recommend you change the hooks out to whatever your favorite treble is. For me, it's an Owner ST36 or Owner ST35. Makes no difference to me what you guys like, but all of these are such tiny little hooks that they're really, really easy to dull. They're really easy to break. They're really easy to straighten. If your bait doesn't advertise that it comes with something amazing, like the Mibro, they've done it for you. They've put Ichikawa trebles on it, so that's fine. You can just roll with that. All these other ones, I would definitely recommend swapping the treble to your favorite. It's probably going to be pretty small, like a size 8 or 10, right? But you're gonna land a lot more fish on there. So again, if you have any questions for me, drop it down below and I will definitely get to it. CJ will leave links to everything that we talked about if you want to check out any of them in further detail. And until next time, guys, thank you for your business and thank you for your support. Thank you for giving us a few minutes to talk about tiny little finesse crankbaits. The season is coming for us. Yep. We still get another probably 6-8 weeks of fun, right? Of top water and like frogs and jacking them. But the season is coming when the small crankbait's going to become vital. So this is a great time to grab them and start playing with them. Guys, cheers. CJ, nice drinking with you.
It's been fun.
Until next time, guys, cheers.